It all starts with Hashiba Junichi walking to his school as a new semester of high school begins. Immediately, he mentions how school is the perfect place for students to meet new people and find members of the opposite sex to date. But, as he enters his classroom, he reveals his anxiety that he will not be one of the lucky ones who gets to do that. His three friends, Shinpei, Kigo, and Minoru, are all part of this loners club. While the rest of the class is coupled up, flirting it up, as Shinpei puts it, he screams how students are supposed to be studying, their frustration visible in every aspect. Junichi, who is clearly discontented that he had no experience with a girl in his first 2 years of high school, is also annoyed that he is still a virgin. As he's contemplating his non-existent dating life, Nene, a neighbor whom Junichi has known since childhood, now a freshman at high school, brings him his lunch. Junichi teases her, saying how she's in high school now but still has the body of a child, ironically staring at her huge breasts. As Junichi tells her she's not interested in her child's body, Nene storms off, right before his friends corner him to question who she was. Junichi explains how she is just a kid he's known from his neighborhood, but his friends plead him to introduce them to her, collectively fantasizing about her, not at all interested in what the law would have to say about their age difference. As his friends label her lowly with big boobs, Kashii enters the classroom, greeting Junichi. As Kashii makes small talk, saying how she would like to talk to him more as they didn't get to do much of that the previous year, Junichi is visibly flabbergasted that she is showing interest to him and is unable to speak without blabbering. Once again, once Shinpei starts talking, it is her boobs that is the topic of conversation, and how small they are. Junichi shows a sense of decency, though, and says girls are not classified good or bad based on boobs. Without any discomfort or shame, his friends start reading a dirty magazine in the middle of class, as the rest of the students stare disgustedly. Through his friend's insistence, Junichi takes the magazine in his hands, but gets startled and throws the magazine right in front of her feet, as Yame Yukina, a blonde, beautiful gal, enters the classroom. She is disgusted that he would read something like that in class and scolds Junichi, who is left terrified from this encounter. Later in the garden, Junichi fantasizes about fooling around with Yame. In the meantime, the guys have come up with a plan that involves Junichi asking Yame out. As Minoru restrains Junichi, Shinpei orders Kigo to go deliver a letter they've written from Junichi's mouth to Yame's locker, just the kind of go-getter friends everyone needs. Junichi struggles to get free and tells them to stop, but it is too late. Later, Yame finds the letter in her locker. Canceling her plans with Renko to go to karaoke, Yame instead finds Junichi out in the garden and asks him about the letter. Junichi, almighty and sexy, kneels to the ground and asks Yame to go out with him, who replies, "Gross." After having anxious thoughts about how he could call himself a man after begging on the ground and imagining the entire school making fun of him for it and being labeled as a perv, he looks up and notices that Yame's panties are visible from his point of view. As Yame tells her to stand up, he finds excuses to stay where he is, craving a little more time to enjoy the view. When Yame asks him what he likes about her, he clumsily answers, her diva side. She confronts him saying he just wants to lose his virginity and tells him she's really careful about that stuff. Horrified at the thought of everyone knowing he's a virgin, he decides he has to run away. However, the view of the panties, now even more visible, throws him off, as two voices in his head start fighting over whether to make up an excuse and run or stay and be bad, which results in a not-so-difficult victory of the panty monster. However, Yame notices he's looking at her panties and outright confronts Junichi, kneeling next to him and getting closer, finally admitting that she finds him kind of cute and seduces him to take a closer look. When Junichi gives in to her seduction and looks, she laughs and ensures that he is, in fact, a virgin. Unable to understand why she went out of her way to out him, Junichi decides to come clean and admits to being a virgin and a perv, effectively ruining his glorious high school days, or so he thinks. As Junichi tries to turn around and leave, Yame grabs him and shoves him down, hovering over him with her breasts and tells him she actually does like him quite a bit. Yame tells him she would go out with him and Junichi screaming in disbelief, as all his dreams are finally coming true. Back at home, Junichi still can't believe Yame has agreed to go out with him, refusing to even humor the possibility of a sexy, smart girl like Yame liking him. Inevitably, his overthinking fairies get the better of him, as he starts questioning whether she's doing it to trick him into lowering his guard and spreading gossip around the school. Once again, the two voices in his head start arguing whether to trust her and go with the flow or go on doubting her. The panty monster appears once again and puts an end to the quarrel, imposing a steamy fantasy about Yame with the setting of a classroom. On the way to school, Shinpei, Kigo and Minoru apologize to Junichi, saying they took it too far. Absolutely sure that the encounter went terribly, Shinpei asks Junichi how it was. Junichi tells them Yame has put him on her list and will embarrass him in front of the whole school, but his friends assure him that they will be there for him. However, their brief heartwarming friendship moment is cut short when Junichi receives a sexy picture from Yame. The guys are absolutely stunned and it only takes them seconds to lash out at Junichi, saying they can't be friends with someone as popular as Junichi, now that he was dating a pretty gal. When they label him a traitor, Junichi tries to convince them it's not what they think. Shinpei tells Junichi that Yame will now be kissing him nonstop, because gals like that, and that there is an order of things, and that he needs to set the stage right. Effectively becoming Junichi's master in such topics, Shinpei orders Junichi to invite Yame to karaoke. When asked why, Shinpei reveals that karaoke is kind of a code word for getting a room or having private time with a girl. He then explains the karaoke XXX rule, the rule he discovered, which should have gotten him a Nobel Prize. The rule is that when you pick pervy songs and sing with a girl, she will take off her clothes. Fail-proof logic, right? After having a dramatic fake death, Shinpei tells Junichi not to let his death be in vain, and to lose his virginity with Yame in karaoke. In class, Yame says good morning to Junichi and reveals to Kashii and the rest of the class that Junichi and her started dating. Needless to say, everyone is shocked. Later, Junichi realizes people who's never talked to him before have suddenly started interacting with him. As his friends pass by, Junichi chases after them, though they say he couldn't hang out with virgins like them any longer. After his friends leave, Yame invites Junichi to spend some time with her after school, and as they are leaving, Nene sees them holding hands. When she asks why, Yame tells of their relationship to Nene and she runs away crying with jealousy. When Yame tells Junichi they are going somewhere they can scream loud and feel good, Junichi immediately knows what that means. At the karaoke place, Junichi has anxiety about what to sing with Yame, as he's only come to karaoke with those stupid guys, as he calls his friends. However, he is somewhat relieved when Yame tells him she actually wanted to sing with her friends, but they were all busy so they would have to make do with this impromptu date. In the karaoke room, all alone with Yame, Junichi's mind goes crazy thinking what they'll do with her, how she could give him a massage and to test his mic. But as he snaps out of his daydream, he sees Yame innocently singing a song and enjoying herself, and realizes maybe she really is there just to have fun and do karaoke. However, the second song she sings, full of lyrics about how she wants it too, how she wants him to carve himself into her, and how she doesn't want to spend another night without him, he is confused even more than before. They sing the next song together, and Junichi is surprised she knows anime songs. For the next song, Yame picks up Pervy 1, as Shinpei predicted and briefed Junichi about, which gets him excited. As he disappears once again into his mind, trying to calm down the panty monster, an angel-like older and cooler version of himself appears, to tell them that he couldn't call himself a man if he only worries about himself, and he wouldn't want to embarrass the lady. The older Junichi tells him to denounce living by his libido and have a passionate kiss with her first, before indulging in desires of the flesh. After an admirable performance, outlining the importance of a decent kiss so that they wouldn't become scum, the imagination fades and Junichi makes a move to kiss Yame. The moment is ruined, though, when she points out a hair sticking out of his nose, and goes to the bathroom. Outside, Yame admits to herself that she can't kiss someone that easily. When karaoke is over, Yame tells Junichi she had fun and she'd like to do it again. As the two are talking, Ranko is spying on the duo as they start walking away. At school, Junichi finds a love letter in his closet, which reads, "I'll be waiting behind the school." As he reads it, the guys sneak up on him and ask why he gets to have all the nice things, frustrated and jealous that they are still on point zero in the dating game. When Junichi tells them he can't just meet another girl without telling Yame, using their immense knowledge of women, Shinpei and Kigo give him great advice, that Yame would think Junichi was terrible if he ignored a love letter. Junichi, being the gullible and clueless boyfriend, trusts his friends. However, it turns out Shinpei's intentions were not as selfless as you would think. He thinks if Junichi gets both Yame and the cute girl with the big boobs, they would get to meet their friends and find someone for themselves. To Junichi's surprise, it is not serious girl with a cute little letter, but a provocative spray-on gal that he is meeting with, Ranko. Ranko sniffs him and asks if he's a virgin, calling attention to her boobs by thrusting them onto him. Junichi is breathless out of excitement as the girl asks him if he wants a quickie right there. Right when Ranko sits on top of him and starts grinding on him, Yame appears and witnesses this scene, bewildered. Junichi tries to explain the situation and asks Ranko to stop, but Yame turns around and storms out. Seconds later, though, she returns and asks what she's doing to her boyfriend, with a smile on her face. Ranko apologizes as Yame picks her up from the ground and introduces her to Junichi. Ranko praises Yame's breasts and how they were really big ever since kindergarten and starts touching her boobs. This unlocks a whole new realm for Junichi as the girls play around. Yame then tells Ranko she is going home with Junichi that night. As they're leaving, Yame warns Junichi that Ranko's dangerous, and soon enough Ranko admits she wants to destroy them. The next day, Junichi, Yame and Ranko go out bowling. Later, as the three of them are walking on the street, Nene sees them and wonders how Junichi has even more girlfriends now. Once again, poor little Nene runs away crying. The three of them then go shopping, where the girls put Junichi through some kind of test, to understand whether or not he's a virgin after all, wearing sexy clothes to get a reaction out of him. When they leave the store, two guys approach Yame and ask where the station is and whether she would take them there and get something to eat. As Ranko asks them if they's trying to pick her up, they say yes, and Junichi tells them she doesn't like that and they need to stop. But the guys are being pushy and Junichi feels the need to protect his girlfriend. However, the guys shove him to the ground and Ranko offers to take them to the station herself. In a minute, Ranko comes back and Junichi asks if she's okay, and she says yes, but the same can't be said about the two perverts, as she's beaten them up and left them lying on the street. On the way home, Junichi blames himself for not being able to protect Yame. Right then, he runs into Ranko, who tells him he likes him, taking Mr. Virgin inside his house. His parents aren't at home, and Ranko climbs on top of him and asks if he wants to have sex with her. Seducing him with her body, she tells Junichi he's a virgin and he needs to let go. She manipulates Junichi into thinking Yame is making it hard for him to lose his virginity, and clearly, she's not making it hard at all, not even at the slightest. As she's grinding on top of him and telling him she can make him feel good, though, Junichi decides to be a faithful boyfriend and pushes her off, telling her he wants to lose his virginity only to Yame. But, Ranko doesn't take no for an answer, jumping back on him and tells him to keep away from Yame. As it turns out, Ranko likes Yame and doesn't at all care for Junichi, she only tries to seduce him to break them up. At that moment, Yame barges in, and tells Ranko to stop and eventually blames Junichi for cheating and for not inviting her. Ranko tells her she was just testing him, and that he refused to fool around with her. Annoyingly, Yame thanks Ranko, thinking she did this because she cared about Junichi and hers relationship. She then tells her she loves her. We then go back in time to a childhood memory where Yame gives Ranko a flower. And Ranko breaks down crying. At school, Ranko corners Junichi and asks him not to tell Yame how she really feels about her. Meanwhile there is a stalker, spying on Junichi as he quarrels with Ranko, Kashii, annoyed that Junichi could like someone other than her. A vision of Kashii, of a frenzy of people admiring and praising her on how cute and smart and beautiful she is. After the opening credits, we see Junichi doing research on his computer, trying to understand Yame better, and also trying to convince himself he is really doing this for Yame, and not for the provoking, sexy girls on the screen. At school, Kigo shows the guys a girl he's seen on stream, a girl so cute and dreamy, and as Shinpei puts it angel-like. Shinpei thinks he knows this girl from somewhere but fails to remember, which drives him nuts. Later, during lunch with Yame and Ranko, Kashii tries to borrow Junichi, saying she needs him for a minute to talk, but Ranko sends her away, because she's disturbing them. After lunch, Kashii approaches Junichi again and tells him she needs help with something the teacher has assigned her to do. Her sinister smile suggests she has other plans, though. At a cafe, Junichi has an enlightenment moment about Kashii, that she is one of those serious gals, and has a weird feeling about her. Soon enough, Kashii sits next to him and puts her leg over him, shamelessly coming on to him. She licks his neck and then, it turns out, as it almost always does, this was only in Junichi's imagination, as he's unable to think about anything but that. She does, however, ask him how he got to be so close to Yame, and that she always thought he would be more into calm, mature girls like herself, no doubt. Late at night, Shinpei watches the angel-like girl's stream, still trying to remember where he remembers her from. Then, in a moment of complete enlightenment, he remembers. The next day in class, Kashii deliberately clings to Junichi's arm in front of Yame and thanks him for the day before, which makes Yame restless. During the break, the guys gather together, and Shinpei tells Kigo, Ann and Minoru that he has finally remembered. He reveals that the dreamy girl for which they've all swooned and lost their heads over, was actually someone they all knew, none other than Kashii. Ranko overhears this conversation and is immediately interested to know more. This time, Kashii asks Junichi if he could do a personal favor for her, and drags him to a more private place. On the roof, where she's taken him, she confesses how she feels about Junichi, telling him how she can't bear it anymore to keep it inside. She tells him she wants him to break up with Yame and be with her. Junichi, being the faithful boyfriend he is, rejects her, only to be yelled at and be called a dog. Kashii is humiliated and offended that her servant dog has been disobedient to her and threatens Junichi of showing a video of herself and him at the cafe to Yame. If he goes out with her instead, she'll delete the recording, she tells him. In his hour of need though, his friends Shinpei, Kigo, Minoru and Ranko come to the save, jumping down from an even higher roof and nailing their superhero landings. Kashii tells Ranko to stay out of her business and get out, but Ranko subtly mentions her knowledge of Kashii's hidden identity on the stream. Defeated, Kashii gives Junichi the recording and walks out. The guys promise her that her secret is safe with them, because they are such a supreme gentlemen. Yame tells Junichi she's not worried about him with other girls, because he is head over heels for her, and it's true. Junichi's fantasizes about Yame as he's sleeping. In his dream, he reaches out to Yame's breast, unaware of the fact that he is doing the same in reality. To his surprise, he actually does feel a soft sensation in his hand, which wakes him up. He finds a girl with large breasts on top of him, but he doesn't know who she is. She gets off of him, surprised he doesn't recognize her, and questions whether her gal speak is incorrect, somehow. Finally Junichi realizes, it's Nene. As Junichi walks to school, his arm completely possessed by Nene, who is clinging to him obsessively, the guys approach them. Minoru is awestruck by Nene and gets closer, slurping and drooling all over her. All three of the guys plead him to introduce them to Nene. Nene clings harder on Junichi's arm, pushing her breasts against him, which sets Shinpei and Kigo off and they run away with bleeding noses and an immense burst of envy. In school, Kashii asks Junichi not to tell anyone she asked him out, and he, of course, says he wouldn't. Later, noticing how tired and worn out Junichi looks from all the drama he's been through lately, Yame tells him they'll go somewhere they could have fun in the weekend. Meanwhile, the Loners Club is still discussing how they couldn't have what Junichi now has, when Minoru shows Shinpei and Kigo a map of where all the little kids around town are. Shinpei points out how in the near future, Minoru would get a visit from the police about this little girl obsession of his, finally someone hinting at how disturbing this would be in the real world. During lunch with Yame and Ranko, Nene comes and throws herself on Junichi, as if Ranko's flirt blocking wasn't enough of an obstacle to Junichi's attempts at getting closer to Yame. Nene then licks Junichi's cheek, which obviously makes Yame uneasy. Junichi anxiously imagines how Yame might break up with him and he is transported to an imaginary boxing ring, where Ranko kicks his ass for hurting Yame. Back in reality, Yame calls Nene Junichi's little sister, and this annoys her, making her question her Kagal speaking and egalness even more. Nene then asks Yame to kneel down and pushes her breasts against hers, stating that Yame's breasts are smaller. Ranko, of course, joins the party and the three girls start chafing their breasts against one another, an ultimate test of self-control for Junichi. Junichi then interludes into an epic monologue about the cause of wars, and how the power of three goddesses rubbing their breasts against one another would rid the world of all the fighting. Hallelujah. Later, in the middle of the night, Nene is in Junichi's bed, completely naked. She asks him to make love to her and presses her boobs onto him. Naturally, Panty Monster, who is the embodiment of Junichi's libido, is awakened. As the monster wreaks havoc on the city, unable to control himself, the cool and older Junichi appears and reminds him that Nene is like a sister to them. When the monster refuses to stop, cool Junichi draws the fusion love card and takes control of the monster. So, Junichi tells Nene he can't do it, that he doesn't want to hurt Yame's feelings. Shinpei asks Junichi if he's gotten any closer to Yame, and he replies no. He then suggests the king game, to get him to take the next steps with her. All he has to do is get her and her friends to agree to meet at her house for a game. During lunch, Junichi builds up the courage and asks Yame if he could come over to her house that night. She thinks it would be the two of them, and is about to say yes, when Junichi adds that all of their friends would come as well, completely ruining the mood. Yame reluctantly says yes, as she would prefer to be alone with him. As luck would have it, though, everyone else has to go home first and then go over to Yame's, which means for a while they will be all alone in her house. Just the thought of it is enough to pull Junichi into his fantasy world for a brief moment before she is interrupted by Kashii. She casually forces Junichi to invite her to Yame's house. At Yame's place, Junichi is stimulated by how different and good Yame looks in her house clothes. When she tells him her parents aren't at home that day, only then does Junichi realize that he has lost his chances with her by inviting everyone else, which is why she got mad earlier, a late but much needed realization. Just when things start to heat up and Junichi is reaching to feel Yame's breasts, the most unfortunate trio enter the room to interrupt them, Kashii, Ranko and Nene. The chaos is just getting started. Moments later, Junichi's gang enter as well, dressed ridiculously weird. The group gathers around a table and Shinpei introduces the king game. Thankfully, everyone has a personal objective they want to get out from the game. Nene wants to get with Junichi, Ranko with Yame and the guys, with whomever, really. By drawing sticks, Kigo is selected the king first and decides to slap Junichi. The second turn is Yame and she chooses to make number 1, who is Kashii, talk in a baby's voice. In the next round, Kashii is the king and she makes number 6 Nene do a sexy knockout pose, which she does, and perhaps takes it a bit too far by trying to take her clothes off. Several other rounds go by and Shinpei whispers to Junichi that in the next round, he will get Yame to kiss Junichi. The plan is set and in motion, but Junichi is having second thoughts about his first kiss with her being a game. Shinpei asks number 1 to kiss him and number 2 Yame to kiss number 3 Junichi. Everyone argues against kissing, but Shinpei explains the absolute power of the king's orders, so they abide. However, to Shinpei's distasteful surprise, it is not the girls who picked the right sticks, but Kigo and Minoru. Once again, we witness the gentlemanness of Junichi, who has devised a plan of his own to not let the girls fall into impure hands. Shinpei is devastated, but can't back out, ironically because of his own speech moments ago. Helplessly, Shinpei kisses Junichi and Kigo kisses Minoru. Contemplating the price he had to pay to save the girls, Junichi is consoled by Yame's acknowledgement of his heroism. At the end, sort of like a cute reprisal, Yame decides to include everyone in Junichi and her's plan for the summer vacation. Needless to say, Junichi is quite disappointed. As they are all having trouble on the financial front, the group decides to get a job together to save up for the vacation. Shinpei assigned everyone jobs they can take, Kigo and Shinpei in an anime shop, Minoru in a daycare center, unsure how he thought that would be a good idea and Junichi in a cosplay cafe's kitchen. As everyone counts the days until the trip with the girls, they start working to save up money, although Shinpei and Kigo's job turns out to be more of a physical labor than they anticipated. Meanwhile, Minoru is demonstrating how to get a ticket to prison, with his job at the daycare, as Junichi finds out that Yame, Ranko, Kashii and Nene are working at the same cosplay cafe as him. As they meet their boss, who awkwardly analyzes each one of the girls disturbingly, they realize they might have to deal with a weirdo. Back at the anime store, Shinpei is doing a surprisingly good job and becomes the acting manager. His level of dedication and seriousness makes Kigo think he's up to something. It's only 5 days until the vacation now and it's book day at the cosplay cafe. The books chosen by the boss, though, seems to all be steamy and slutty selections for the girls to cosplay. Junichi tries to keep it together as first Nene, then Ranko, and finally Yame act out the dirty book. It is Yame's reading which finally sets him off as he yells stop. Junichi tells the boss he's taken it too far and that he's far too perverted. As the boss argues how happy the customers will be once they see the girls' blushing faces as they read these books, Junichi relentlessly fights for the girls and their feelings. Yame is secretly moved by this. Moments later, a phone is brought to the boss by Kashii and after apologizing and promising the voice on the other end of the phone, the boss declares that the event today is cancelled, all thanks to Kashii's slyness. Later when they're walking, Yame tells Junichi how cool she thought he was that day. Their relationship takes a more serious turn as Yame tells him she wants to do more relationship-wise stuff with him like Christmas plans and matching outfits. Finally, Yame says after the beach with the group, the two of them should also go somewhere different, where they would be alone. It is finally time for the summer vacation on the beach, the one they all waited for so long. Seeing the girls in bikinis for the first time, the boys are tongue-tied, but none of them more so than Junichi when he sees Yame in a swimsuit. On the beach, Junichi is almost like fresh water in the desert, as Nene, Kashii and Yame all fight for his attention. Needless to say, Kigo and Shinpei are frustrated. As Ranko and Yame go to find a place to have dinner, Kashii, Nene and Junichi build a sandcastle, when Junichi sees Yame talking to some guy, which makes him uncomfortable. He is immediately soothed, however, by Yame's breasts pushed against him. When Yame asks Junichi to rub sun lotion on her, Ranko asks for the same. As they both wait for him, barebacked and lying on the sand, the monster in him awakens and he starts rubbing sun lotion on both girls, who seem to enjoy it. At dinner, the guys lure Junichi into a guys talk and include him in their master plan, for whatever it is this time. They gear up, getting in the stride of a secret soldier, and convince Junichi that not peeping at the gals is disrespectful to them, as it suggests they are unattractive. In the women's bath, the girls are bathing completely naked, as one does, reassured by the inn's supposed tight security against peepers. The girls have a fun time, squeezing each other's boobs, although we can't exactly be sure this isn't just what a guy thinks or dreams girls actually do when they're alone. The Peeper Soldier Squad arrive at the scene and Junichi sets off an alarm on purpose to call off the plan, but Kigo and Shinpei find him guilty and a violent shootout starts while the two shoot at Junichi and he falls off a cliff. With no one left to jeopardize their plan, they start running towards the bath, but Kigo falls down a trap. Shinpei pulls him out right before he dodges arrows, another security precaution set up by the inn. After a moving pep talk by Shinpei, the two decide to push forward despite the obstacles. After dodging a few of the traps by an inch, Shinpei is shot in the back by an arrow and collapses to the ground. He tells Kigo to leave him and complete their dream. It is now the second time Shinpei fake dies dramatically. Kigo screams out in despair and starts running but accidentally activates fireworks, which the girls enjoy. Junichi wakes up to find Yame hovering over him and she tells him Shinpei and Kigo were found cold in the forest and are now back at the inn, safe and sound. Yame tells Junichi how much fun she's had, but Junichi instead tells her he wants to meet alone next time, just the two of them. Maybe to an amusement park, which would be romantic. Their intimacy, under the romantic fireworks, leaves Kashii, Nene and Ranko sad and in the dark. Yame runs into Dai, a handsome guy she's known from middle school, who hits on her and tells her how hot she's gotten. He also invites her to grab a bite with her old friends the next day. This all happens in front of Junichi, who is annoyed by this obviously very popular Chad in front of him and how well he got along with Yame. Later, Junichi reveals his insecurities and jealousy of Dai, the handsome and popular Chad who seems to come out of a girl's manga. When Junichi says he thought Yame might be embarrassed to introduce him to Dai, she gets mad and storms off. Back at school, the guy's ecstatic mood because of the awesome trip with the girls is unmatched by Junichi, who is crying on his desk because of Dai and his constant overthinking of the situation, which isn't actually a situation yet, at all. The guys finally decide to be decent friends and help him out. When Junichi tells them about Dai, Minoru stupidly suggests he could always break up with Yame and become an observer like the rest of them. Shinpei, however, tells him there's nothing more than an NTR. NTR, he explains, is the Japanese term for when your lover is taken by another man, so when you're basically being cuckolded. Again with his endless knowledge of women, Shinpei explains how when a girl says she doesn't like something, but says it feels good, it means she doesn't want it to feel good, even though it does. Through the end of a monologue that doesn't really make much sense, he comes to the genius conclusion that Dai has a magical dong that wins over any girl. This makes Junichi realize he shouldn't have asked for his advice in the first place. Later that day, Yame keeps ignoring Junichi, which eats at him as his anxiety grows. He runs after Yame and asks if they could go home together after school. She says she'll be meeting up with her middle school friends. And when he tries to talk about the previous day, she says she's in a hurry and leaves. At karaoke with the guys, Junichi is visibly desperate, and Shinpei finally says something that makes sense, and tells Junichi to forget about his pride and grovel to his girlfriend. After whining about it for a while, Shinpei finally convinces him that even though he hadn't been wrong, it was his smartest move to apologize to Yame as the man, and she would lay down her arms once he begged. Now in a better mood, Junichi is almost excited for his intense groveling the next day. Right then, however, he sees Yame and Dai talking intimately, and immediately evaporates into the air, announcing his return in another life, as this sight completely erases his existence. As he's walking, Yame catches up with him and tells him he must have thought about what he's done, because he looks so gloomy. She is very cheerful, which agitates Junichi, as he believes, for some reason, that she has cheated on him with Dai just the day before. He asks what she did yesterday, and when she answers, he follows up with why she was alone with Dai. Yame says Dai told her he wanted to talk to her after everyone left and she listened. But Junichi is so convinced that she only went out with a virgin like him to screw him over, that he tell Yame to stop messing with him and stop hurting him. Yame looks at him disappointedly before Junichi runs off. Later at school, there is only a cold breeze between Yame and Junichi, and both of them are gloomy. Up at the roof, Kashii tells Junichi she could offer him a friendly ear if he needed one, and he says he doesn't understand Yame. As hard as it is for Kashii, though, when Junichi says Yame is a terrible person, she lashes out at him saying he's being selfish and not thinking about how Yame is feeling. While he's walking, this time it's Nene who notices something's off with Junichi and offers him advice. Nene tells him if he didn't stop worrying and sulking over something so little, he would end up marrying her, remembering the promise Junichi has made her years ago. If he was still as uncool as he was then, he would marry Nene someday. Kashii and Nene's words get him to think, and seeing Kashii on the stream, talking about how selfish he's been about everything and how she feels about him, he finally comes to his senses. The next day, the girls are gathered to hear how Yame feels about the whole Junichi drama, but she is unable to talk without crying and shedding silent tears. Ranko stands up abruptly, mad that Junichi has hurt Yame, on her way to confront him. Junichi admits to her how dumb, stupid, pervert and selfish he is, and how he will face Yame and tell her how much he means to her. This makes Ranko let go of him, making clear that that doesn't mean she's okay with the two of them being together. Coincidentally, Dai and his group of guys enter the same restaurant and Junichi overhears them talking about how hot Yame was and how easy it was to get her to come with him with a simple, "I need to talk to you." Dai says he loves having girls who have boyfriends, and how he'll give her to his friends once he's done, and how Yame is a slut, all of which Junichi hears, as well as Ranko. This is the final drop for Junichi, and as Ranko attempts walking over to the guys, he stops her and takes the matter into his own hands. As Junichi confront Dai and asks him to take his words back, that Yame wasn't for the streets. Dai insists she is, and Junichi hurls at Dai and grabs him by his shirt, threatening him to take what he said back. With a single word, Dai gathers his guys outside as they form a circle around Junichi. Junichi swings the first punch but received it right back at his face as Dai dodges his. He then attacks Dai and bites his leg. As he is biting into his leg, he threatens him never to come any close Yame again. And even when Dai's guys are beating him up, he doesn't let go, not until he promises he would stay away. After he lets go, Dai stands up and starts kicking Junichi, saying he'd not keep his promise and that he'd use Yame however he wanted because she was for the streets. When Junichi can't last any longer, Ranko comes to the rescue and beats up Dai's friends. When she, as well, is outnumbered, a second team of backup, Shinpei, Kigo, and Minoru arrive at the scene. The guys tell Junichi to hurry over to Yame, in a heartwarming moment of friendship. As the battle begins, Junichi calls Yame, who ignores it. As Yame and the girls talk, it is clear that Yame and Junichi both have the same insecurities and doubts about one another, both untrue suspicions that the other didn't actually like them. The girls advise her to talk to him directly and get to the bottom of it, instead of worrying endlessly, and so she goes to meet with Junichi. Back at the battle, Ranko and the guys have beat up everyone but Dai himself, and Dai desperately begs them to spare him. Distracted by a small girl interrupting them, Ranko allows Dai to escape. As he's escaping, Dai pushes over the little girl, who almost falls to the ground, before Minoru catches her and returns her to her mother. This unlocks a beast mode in Minoru, whose Hulk-like abilities are activated and demonstrated on Dai. As the guys hold Minoru back, Ranko grabs Dai, who begs not to hurt him, only to be kicked in the balls, a rather just punishment. Ranko tells the guys to release the Hulk Minoru, which is, as Ranko puts it, Dai's hard way of learning just how big of a hole he's been. Back at the Yame, Junichi front, Junichi is waiting anxiously for Yame to come. Just when he's about to lose hope that she'll come, he reminisces his past few months and how incredible it's been, not only because he dated Yame, but also because he got friends he always hoped for. And just then, Yame comes. Circling back to how everything started, Junichi kneels down in front of Yame and asks her, once more, to go out with him. He tells her he was weak and stupid and yes, a virgin. He's always only thought about himself and asked her out not because he had feelings for her, but so that he could lose his virginity. But now, he declares, being more truthful than he's ever been, he loves her, and he can't live without her. Yame asks what is it about her that made him fall in love with her, and his answer convinces her and makes her happy beyond belief. The two make plans to go somewhere together. After this, Yame playfully teases him to wait for the reveal of where they're going. When they meet again, Yame is wearing the outfit Junichi has once picked out for her and they go the amusement park, finally arriving at the romantic date they should have probably had at the very beginning. They spend the entire day and night at the park, where Junichi realizes is full of couples. Yame suggests they go into a photo booth, but Junichi loses sight of her and as he looks for her in one of the booths, he sees a couple kissing in there. Going into one with Yame, and hearing the machine tell them to do a kissing photo, Junichi gets excited and right before they are about to kiss, Yame cruelly steps back to leave Junichi looking stupid, waiting to be kissed. Later, outside on the street, they make plans to turn this into a tradition they would do every year and hold hands. As they're talking, Yame unexpectedly throws herself onto Junichi and finally kisses him on the lips. Then, she casually waves goodbye and runs away. When she's alone, she's blushing with happiness. The next day, Junichi thanks Kashii for her help with Yame before and asks her if she's streaming, sometimes. Kashii, of course, acts fool and pretends she doesn't understand. She is saved by Nene, who jumps on Junichi. When Ranko and Yame arrive, the awkward, blushing staring between the two gives away their kiss. Everyone acts the way we would expect them to. Ranko playfully threatens Junichi to not go any further. Kashii is annoyed at how quickly this happened, and Nene is cutely disappointed. Yame and Junichi hold hands and start running, with the rest of them running right behind them. And as Shinpei and Kigo narrates, it ends happily ever after. Fellow weebs, if you enjoyed the recap, subscribe and turn on notifications for more hilarious videos. Also, if you would like to buy some cool anime keychains, then go ahead and check my description below.